Well, you know that's not going to happen. That's not what I mean. Trump's going to be there for another.
They can do it without us.
3.5 years, or maybe ever. So I can't imagine in 3.5 years this war won't have resolved itself somehow. It's going to have to do it without America's help. I hope you're not counting on that.
I'm not counting on it, certainly.
That's just not where
I think, you know, one of the things is, this could create a war in Europe, in a sense. And Europe is definitely showing signs of really coming up to the game.
You mean defending? I mean, Trump always says NATO was too reliant on America. We paid too much into it. They should be defending themselves more. That's not all wrong.
This is Sean Penn. In one of the videos, Bill Maher addresses Sean Penn, directly claiming that Donald Trump was right, and that Penn is defending Ukraine. You may recall him from the Breakfast Club. Since Bill Maher is finally supporting Trump on something, I'm genuinely startled. Let's take a look.
That's all wrong.
No,
what I'm saying is that because they're being forced into a pinch this way, because they're clearly not just defending Ukraine on a principle. They understand the ramifications of a Russian victory there, and the way that would inevitably spread through Europe.
I don't think that's true. It would not inevitably spread through Europe. Russia is not strong like that. The idea that Russia is going to, I understand his desire. I mean, Putin would like to reconstitute the Soviet Union for sure.
Because they're not strong like that it happens. What Putin needs to do is this kind of an action every time he's going down politically. And that's the way he manipulates
He doesn't have enough soldiers. He doesn't have enough money. He doesn't have enough materiel. I mean, I guess it could be a drone war. But drones are cheap. Drones, like, it really puts the lie to the new budget we have, which, of course, just is the one thing that both parties could always agree on, which is shoveling more money to the Pentagon, which they call defense, but really is defense contractors, to make shit that obviously in this age of drones are already obsolete. It's just about providing jobs back home and making shit that even the Pentagon sometimes says we don't.
I think that Bill Maher is aware of the military-industrial complex, but he disagrees with it like Chenker does. I think that when we see big, beautiful bills with deficits of $150 billion and trillions of dollars that the average American cannot afford, we kind of wonder what's going on. But you guys have a way to make money off of it if Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill passes. All right, so here's a great place to put that big, beautiful bill ad.
Has enough to be a real threat again in this way. But in the meantime, you look at what's happening in Georgia now. You look at what had been happening in Ukraine, what he aims to have happen in Ukraine, where whether or not they before the invasion, where the pressure was to have a proxy, to have a puppet in leadership, and so it's not always an army coming across. This war, Putin has already declared that this war is against the United States. He's said it on numerous occasions when he says, this is saying Ukraine was a proxy of the U.S. And so, and the war on the U.S. has been a cyber war, but it has affected literally lives and certainly livelihoods.
Well, there's no doubt that he never lost his KGB bona fides. He's a guy who was raised in a system where it was the Soviet Union and the United States was an existential enemy. I get it. He never lost that. Now, there are people who would argue that we are the ones who made the mistake when we didn't disband NATO when the Soviet Union disbanded, because NATO was formed to confront the Soviet Union.
Or had we invited the former Soviet Union into NATO, perhaps then we would have had more responsibility to help build their institutions to be able to.
But that makes no sense. NATO was.
I am not kidding when I say that this is a direct outcome of Bill Morris seeing my movie.
To fight the Soviet Union, how can you then invite? It's like the Yankees are playing the.
Well, no. You have other great enemies. Let's say, right? China for one. And so building a coalition.
We all gang up against China.
Well,
yeah, that could work.
And it was discussed. It was discussed at the time.
But China wasn't a power then. when the Soviet Union rolled up in '91. China wasn't some threat. I mean, it was the country they talked about as, ooh, watch out, they could be the rising power of the next century, which they turned out to be.
Well, but they were economically exploding. They were one of the biggest providers, along with the Russians, of weapons to the Vietnamese. We don't have to go back in time and the entire balance of it, but the bottom line was that Russia, while we were dancing, Perestroika and Gorbachev and Reagan and the walls come down, they never got a chance to dance there. The breadlines were longer, and oligarchy and gangsterism took over where the communist power void left off. And so,
the middle class also did expand. Once you got rid of state-owned industry, Moscow, I know I've never been, but I've certainly know people who've been before and after, and they say Moscow's a very alive city with a lot of people who are doing well. I mean, you go out at night in Moscow, you can have a good time. Yeah,
Moscow was a picture city. It is still today.
What does that mean?
I mean, that's the advertisement for Russia. It's the ad. Listen, I went and did the
Paradise Ghetto.
Yeah, for a movie thing, I did a little bit of training at Star City, which is about 40 kilometers outside of Moscow. And that's their NASA.
Oh.
That gives you a little inside view of the gas station with nuclear weapons that they are in so many ways. Nothing but chip paint on broken walls.
Being our age makes it easier for us to not freak out, because I feel like the kids are more freaked out. Now, that may just be because that generation is just, angsty about everything.
I'm kidding you not. This is literally because Bill Maher has watched my videos.
Well, the ones who are engaged are, right? And that I can only imagine is extremely hard, particularly younger. My kids are in their 30s.
And where's their head on where the country is? Are they despondent? Or what I'm saying is we remember Nixon. No, he wasn't. He certainly didn't go where Trump went. But we thought he was the end of the world. And it turned out he wasn't. Is that going to be the case with Trump?
Yes.
He's already been the end of hundreds of thousands of...
Oh my gosh, this is the reason why actors and actresses are not taking seriously. Donald Trump is a deranged killer who has wiped off hundreds of thousands of worlds in addition to our globe. He has also started a global genocide.
So, bro, I'll have another sip.
Yeah.
God, we need him more.
Yeah, but I mean, even bigger picture than that. Just, the fundamental essence of America being the peaceful transfer of power, which is, always the number one.
The peaceful transfer of power, and at what temperature is the globe running when he hands it over?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm certainly a person who believes as much as you do, or any person who can read scientific literature, even for the layman, that we are, doing horrible things environmentally, and it's obviously going to get us at some point. I don't know that one side has really done a lot more than the other. I mean, you can read some very depressing stats coal use after all these years and all this money spent on clean energy, and it's almost the exact percentage as it was, I don't know, whatever the stat was, 1990 or something.
You're a pro-nuclear power guy.
Yes.
Me too.
I'd like to build one right here.
Yeah.
You can use my yard.
France makes money on theirs.
Totally.
Yeah.
Now, I always say nuclear energy is a lot like marriage. When it goes bad, it really goes bad. Not that I have to tell you. Marriage is going bad. I'm sorry. But it is that kind of thing. You just have to make sure you marry the right person, or you make the plant safe. Because when it melts down, it's so destructive. And that's what people are afraid of nuclear power for 3 reasons. 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, Fukushima. Those 3 words, and those are 3 powerful words.
He entered the room with a cigarette in one hand and a bottle of alcohol in the other. which is not homicide in a sober world, get off your ass and go to work. I don't even know what you're talking about half the time, but I know enough to know that this is a negligent homicide. Now put all that healthcare nonsense aside. Let me tell you straight, I've never had health insurance. It's okay if some of you disagree, but I've been without health insurance for a while, and I firmly believe that people, like me, small business owners who manage several companies, support their staff and take care of their families, were never intended to be in this system. It's not made for us to succeed. Just consider getting a second health insurance policy, taxes on real estate insurance for businesses. Have you looked at the rates if you are self-employed or own your own firm? Let's look at an example. Let's say you are in your early 20s and have a profitable firm that brings in $120,000 a year. You need a car to run your business. So you lease one fine at a write-off, but you still have to pay for it each month plus property taxes and business insurance. Perhaps you're renting an office, and on top of that you have health insurance for yourself and your employees too. It's crazy. And if you're the only person managing the entire operation, it's even worse. How much money do you really have left over after all those deductions and payments they expect you to keep? Working, paying, and grinding, but the system was designed to squeeze you dry and no one is really talking about it.
Well, they're powerful in, first of all, we know, if we're just talking about the climate, the result at the end of all this stuff. We have to assume that we are in some denial. We absorb the information. Let's say we believe in this school of thought that's coming from the scientific community. Yes, the world's heating up. Those same scientists are saying, this is, like, guys, this is urgent. We don't really want to process that. That's part of it. It's not just that they're not communicating it in ways that are successful.
I would agree with that.
And that's the same. So, for example, the normalization of these 30,000 children who have been kidnapped by the Russians. We're finding ways for that not to be what we know it is to us, right? These are just defense mechanisms. And finally, trying to be a little braver about this stuff and get a clear thought. It does seem to me that the science that I've come to trust, not claiming any kind of
Were you vaccinated?
expertise, but I pay attention, I care. And I don't think I'm alarmist. It has me extremely worried. We were talking.
I want to reiterate that I live in Arizona. As I mentioned in previous videos, when 9/11 happened, I had teachers tell me that they were younger and very concerned because Arizona had a nuclear power plant and they were afraid that their entire state would blow up. However, nothing happened because everyone knows that 9/11 was staged for media purposes, which is why Michael Jackson and several other people like the JP Morgan guys, or whatever weren't on the Titanic, weren't at the World Trade Center. Hey, everyone, if you watched all the way through, please leave a comment below. I'm really interested in climate change topics and want to go into again with current issues. I have strong opinions on this. So let me know if you're interested and we'll explore together. Thank you all. Like, comment, and subscribe for more. See you next time.